Wisconsin is going back to work.
I'm Steve Walters.
And I'm J.R. Ross.
This is Rewind, WisconsinEye summary of this week in the Capitol. J.R., sometimes you throw a Hail Mary pass and it scores a touchdown.
Yes.
Thursday night, 6 of the 9 members of the U.S. Supreme Court blocked our photo ID law, and that appeal was filed by the ACLU and others.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, they've been back. So now the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals in September lifted the stay, right? September 12th. Said, okay, the state is likely to succeed on its appeal. We're going to lift the state. They can implement voter ID. Then ACLU went to the Supreme Court last week on the stay alone, said, look.
That's the Hail Mary element.
First one. Then the 7th Circuit comes on Monday and says this law is constitutional. It's similar to Indiana's, which the U.S. Supreme Court has already upheld. Therefore, we're all good to go.
Okay, let's slow it down. On Monday, federal court judges say photo ID law is constitutional, will be in effect for November 4 elections.
ACLU goes to the U.S. Supreme Court again saying that decision should be stayed. It's too close to the election. Now, both appeals from the ACLU were similar. It said basically there's not enough time to implement this. There'll be confusion and chaos. And oh, by the way, these thousands of people who don't have an ID don't have enough time to get one before the election. Then, in a stunning one-page order last night, 8-ish, U.S. Supreme Court says, yeah, this thing's on hold. Now, the majority did not say why.
Right.
They didn't express. What was interesting was the 3 justices who dissented in that decision said there is a legitimate reason why the majority is doing this, number one.
In fact, let's read what Justice Alito said, and just one sentence, JR, and then I'll let you continue. It is particularly troubling that absentee ballots have been sent out without any notation that proof of photo ID must be submitted. So, is it on the merits of a photo ID, or is it on too close to the election?
It's the timing, essentially. Now, what the minority said essentially was, look, we don't think we should be intervening because of a certain standard here, but we have concerns. So while the majority isn't saying why it did what it did, it's pretty clear that the entire court had concern about absentee ballots. Remember, when the stay was lifted, they'd already mailed out and had they'd mailed out several thousand and had several hundred returned already by September 12th.
Without photo ID.
Then the GAB said, okay, we're going to go out now and have the clerks contact everybody who's voted absentee or requested one, and so you have to turn in a copy of your ID, have your vote counted. There was a problem there apparently with what these folks say. And again, that was also cited in the ACLU's briefs. This is not good. So they, at least for now, they've won their reprieve. Now, the question is long term, what's going to happen? Short term, unlikely to be in place. This one, long term, we'll see. Is this, I guess, and one of the questions is Wisconsin's law substantially different than Indiana's? If it is, there's a chance they could be, turned down. If it's not, they've already said yes once. Why would they say yes again?
Well, what about J.B. Van Hollen? He put out a statement. We will be exploring alternatives to address the court's concern and have voter ID on Election Day. Any chance of that, J.R.?
It would be another Hail Mary, but a longer Hail Mary than the one that was thrown by the ACLU. I mean, I haven't found anybody yet who tells me that there is a legitimate, viable avenue for JB at this point to really have the Supreme Court reject what it did last night.
Who can he ask?
Good
when
question.
You have 6 justices of the U.S. Supreme Court saying, not for this election, photo ID in Wisconsin.
So that's what I'm still asking about. If he's got something, he's not telling us what it is yet. So, but is it realistic? I don't know.
So if we're taping on Monday, last Monday, the photo ID is reinstated.
Yes.
But we're taping on Friday, no photo ID requirement.
As of today, yes, no photo ID requirement.
As of today.
I know, by the way, the GB had just announced yesterday, we're going to spend the money to go ahead and...
The $460,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a PR campaign. Yes. Shelve that. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Item number 2. I was very surprised by comments of Speaker Assembly Vos. He was very blunt, and he said that GAB Director Kevin Kennedy is an embarrassment who shouldn't hold the job, and the GAB, the Government Accountability Board, the referee, the ultimate referee of elections and ethics issues, is dysfunctional and undemocratic. Pretty ominous when a speaker who is probably going to keep that job for the next 2 years tells a senior public official either think about retirement or it doesn't look good for you.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. One, it's been getting more personal the last few weeks with Republicans and Kevin Kennedy. I mean,
they sued him
over
the design of the ballot.
They've been saber-rattling about the GAB for a while now. But it was a couple of weeks ago that Robin first really started talking about Kevin Kennedy. And then at our luncheon this week, this was kind of an escalation, if you will, the rhetoric.
Yes.
Really got personal with him, called him an embarrassment. I mean, things that you hadn't really seen from Robin or from Scott Fitzgerald, both of whom were unhappy with the GAB.
Right.
But a little tacky, maybe. Some people have told me they thought it was a little bit kind of over the top for Robin to personally target Kevin Kennedy. But I can find a whole list of Republicans and Democrats who haven't been happy with the GAB. They don't like the way it's operated. You have Republicans unhappy about the ballot design.
Yeah.
You have Democrats unhappy that the GAB said, okay, the stay was lifted in the voter ID case. We're going to go ahead and implement it on our own without directive from the Attorney General, the Governor, anybody else telling you they should do that. So that you don't have a lot of friends when you're the referee in politics.
And the GAB had voted in secret to join some of the John Does, hadn't they?
Well, this really goes back to 2011. I mean, that was kind of the beginning. Now, there have been issues before that, but the real riff with Republicans was back in 2011, the first round of recalls, the GAB said, okay, we're going to have the Republicans go first. We just, by chance, finished all of their recall petitions, certified them. We need more time than Democratic ones. We're going to do them on back-to-back Tuesdays. That infuriated Republicans. It really did put them on the line a little bit more, and caused a big. I mean, it was beginning of the end, if you will. And there's been one thing after another since then.
And GAB also ruled that senators who faced recall elections would have to run in their new districts.
No,
and
the old districts, the old lines. Yeah.
Okay, but that.
Yeah.
That also.
Republicans won the new lines because basically for John Lehman and Van Wangard.
Yes.
Remember, Van's district was most redrawn. I mean, they're all made a little bit better for Republicans. Well, not all of them, but a lot of these were. But the Wangard one went from being Racine County and the city of Racine in the western county to just western Racine and Kenosha County. Made it way more Republican. There's no way Van would have lost that seat in a recall in 2012. But because it was the old lines, that really gave John Lehman a leg up, if you will.
Here's what intrigues me. Voss's comments come within a week, within a month of the election. Now, it seems to me that this is the kind of thing that an Assembly Speaker would say the day after you have a GOP wave. Why would you go out of your way to put both fingers in the eye of the state's top election official 3.5 weeks before the election?
What's the retribution going to be? I mean, if you think about it, our campaign finance laws are basically been gutted from the Supreme Court decisions and other federal court decisions. What's left? You have to report your donations, right, and disclose who gave them. I mean, that's basically what's left at this point. So there's not really anything the GAB is going to do to you. And two, he has the power. You know, if Republicans come back, control the Senate, and they're in pretty good shape right now to do that, and the governor's office, they can rewrite the finance laws any way they want to.
Writing the rules for the 2016 election.
Essentially, yeah.
And reorganizing, blowing up, and reshaping the GAB.
So the question is, what would it look like, and how much input would the other side have? Now, if it's going to be a totally Republican bill, Democrats will complain, there might be some lawsuits, but what can they do? I mean, Republicans have, if you're in control, you have all the cards.
Right. Okay, well, the third item, a very busy week. I don't think anybody was surprised at the outcome, but I think they were surprised at how we got there on same-sex marriage. The U.S. Supreme Court just said we're not going to listen to Attorney General Van Hollen appealing Judge Crabb's ruling, throwing out our ban on same-sex marriage, right?
Us and, 5 other states? Several appeals that were going on at one time. They basically said we're not going to hear these. One thing I saw was that the U.S. Supreme Court might wait until there's a conflicting appeals court decision to get involved.
Yes.
We haven't had one of those yet.
Right.
There's only been, as far as I know, one federal judge in the entire country who's upheld any state ban. That was in Louisiana.
Yeah, New Orleans.
Only one. The rest of them have been knocked down. There was that whole thing this week with where Idaho and Nevada, one was off for a while, then it was off. But so far it's been like one decision after another in favor of gay marriage and knocking these bans down. There's no conflict right now. So the Supreme Court, some people believe, just doesn't want to get dirty in this issue until it has to. Right. But it's clear that this is the way things are moving. For gay marriage proponents, I mean, they've been waiting 8 years. Remember, it was only 8 years ago.
2006.
59% voted for the ban. Now public opinion polls show almost an exact reverse. 54-ish, 52-ish, saying we support gay marriage, period.
And Governor Walker, who champions the traditional one man, one woman, and Lieutenant Governor Clayfish didn't have much to say about this.
Governor Walker said it's over because he doesn't want to talk. I mean, it's not a winning issue for him. It excites the bases, but that's about it. It's not a winning issue for him. He'd rather talk about the economy, try and put a positive spin on what's happening job-wise, than talk about social issues.
And Lieutenant Governor Clayfish was asked, what about the hundreds of people who got married after Judge Crabb's ruling? She says it's the law. While we may disagree with the law, we can't disobey it.
Then why isn't DOJ saying it's going to not contest that lawsuit? Remember, the folks who, gay marriage proponents, went to court, federal court, saying we want to force the state to recognize these marriages that were happening in June. DOJ hasn't been saying all week what's going to do about that lawsuit. Okay. Why? That's a big question people have. The case is still pending. Nothing's been filed by DOJ yet, but some people I talked to thought it would be kind of petty if DOJ were to go to contest those marriages and say, no, we want you to go get married again, because now it's law of the land.
Right. And the busyness continues. Democrats climbed all over a statement by the GOP candidate for Attorney General, Waukesha County DA Brad Schimel. Schimel said, I just believe that any law enacted by the ledge, signed by the governor, the Attorney General has a duty to defend. Even in the 1950s, he would have defended the law banning interracial marriage. Let's listen to the exact question he was asked at Oshkosh and how he responded.
But if you had been Attorney General in, say, the 1950s in a state that did not allow interracial marriage, do you think the proper role of an Attorney General then was to not put himself or herself into the mix and say this is wrong? Even
yeah, it is, and I understand the argument.
Your job is to uphold the law, even if it's something that we might look back in the future as absurd or something.
Well, it might be distasteful to me.
Okay.
But
right. I appreciate your answer.
I've got to stay consistent with that as the state's lawyer. It's not my job to pick.
Okay, JR, he said, I have to be consistent. If I believe this, unfortunately, I would have even had to defend the ban on interracial marriages. You know, so many things were different in the 1950s. Is this a pretty live issue for Brad Schimel?
Oh yeah, it's self-inflicted wound. Here's the thing, I've talked to people about this week. They said, it's great you had that belief that you have to be consistent. And in fact, he at one time, remember, said that he would not defend the domestic partner registry after J.B. Van Hollen said he wouldn't do the same. Then came back and said, no, I've thought about it some more. I would defend it because I have to be consistent. Right. That's a great theory to have. In political practice, you never want to answer a question like that in the way that he did it, because it makes you look bad. Even if you're being pure on the issue, politically it's damaging and it's self-inflicted.
The implication is racism and all that.
And it plays into the argument from Democrats that Brad Schimel would be this robot of an AG who would never exercise his own discretion and would just, whatever the law says, I will do. And then it also brings up the natural extension of, okay, well, would you have defended slavery? What would you, school segregation? Like, where is the line? Like, where is your own sense of value? Now, for Republicans, they're saying, look, Susan Happ's got her own problems. You know, this is a self-inflicted wound that we'll get over, but hers are going to stick more, and we're going to see.
Well, do you think the biggest difference between these two candidates, Democratic Jefferson County DA Susan Happ and Brad Schimel, is just this? One says, if it's dutifully passed by the ledge, signed by the governor, I have a duty to defend, and Susan Happ says, I'm not going to defend any law, any constitutional change I think is unconstitutional. Is that the biggest difference between them?
It's one of them, but there are others. I mean, really this case is not going to boil down to their judicial philosophy or legal philosophies, okay? It's going to boil down to who has the best ads in the final 2 to 3 weeks that makes the other side look the worst. We've seen filings that an outside group's coming in for Susan Happ starting sometime next week. Brad's already been up on the air. We assume the other air cover coming for both of them. Who can make the other look the worst in these ads? That's really what's going to drive it. And, by the way, coattails. I mean, perhaps the top of the ticket will kind of possibly drag one across the finish line. Right. One question I have for people is, they both right now think they're going to be disliked by November 4th. I mean, they're not really well-known, A, and B, they've all these negative stories will either be viewed positively come election day, and if they're not, who does that benefit? That may also then play back into the coattails idea that if Walker wins and has coattails, it might help Brad Schimel, et cetera, and the reverse for Mary Burke.
Do you think the Democrats here have successfully taken some of the attention off of Happ and her handling of this case involving someone charged with child sex assault who they had a property, she and her wife had a property sale with?
A little bit, but it's not on TV. I mean, this stuff isn't on TV yet. And what I've learned in covering politics is no matter what we talk about in our products or on this show, once it's on TV, that's when it matters. And if they can get this on TV and make it sink in, then it'll be damaging. Oh, by the way, first debate is Sunday. in Milwaukee, broadcast statewide. I'm sure this stuff's going to come up then too.
And also, just a footnote on this, One Wisconsin Now filed a complaint. Schimel allegedly used campaign funds on 16 occasions to pay babysitters, totaling about $500. No big deal?
It's kind of stuff that both sides do. You file the complaint, you get the story, and it's a one-day hit. Sometime after the election is over, either the GAB says it's not a big deal, or you pay a $500 fine. One of the two happens, and it goes away.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Final subject before we get into stock, WisPolitics stock. First, there's only going to be 2 gubernatorial debates. First one tonight, and the next one a week from tonight, both on Fish Fry Fridays. Fish Fry and High School Football Fridays. What does Burke have to do in these debates, JR?
She has to prove that she's a viable alternative to Walker. Now, we have, let's face it, we have different bars for Governor Mary Burke in these debates, right? He's been in politics his entire adult life. He's done this dozens of times. He should be more polished and prepared and better on the stump. She's never done this before, as far as we know. I'm sure her staff has been preparing her since the day she announced about her answers on the issues, about how to respond to questions, but this is prime time. While it be a small audience, the key for Mary Burke is don't make a mistake. Same goes for Governor Walker, let's be honest. About debates anymore, don't make a mistake, especially one ends up in a TV ad. But for Mary, it is, can I present myself not only as A, you shouldn't vote for that guy, but B, I am a viable alternative, and you can trust me because I've proved myself to be somebody who knows her stuff on the stump.
What's the most dangerous thing Walker could do in these debates, JR?
Probably lose his cool, stumble, look like he's fumbling for an answer. I mean, that's the Governor Walker that we know is pretty polished on his answers.
He stays on message more than any other politician maybe I've ever covered.
So if he says something that, there's all kinds of pot what ifs. I mean, remember back in 2000 when Hillary Clinton ran for the U.S. Senate. Remember that moment where her male opponent came across the podium and got in her face, and every woman I know said, I remember my jerk boyfriend who did something like that to me, and that turned him off in that race, right? Okay. Stuff like that are possibilities, but it's just basically keep us cool, be the Governor Walker that we know, and he should be, in theory, should be fine.
Okay. All right. Your turn. WisPolitics stock report, JR.
Rising gay marriage proponents. I mean, obviously, it's a long time coming for them. They all celebrated this week.
Issues finally resolved?
8 years ago, they thought this day would never come, and now it's here. There is only that one hitch of what about those 500 marriages that were formed in June? What happens to them? And B, there is still that issue hanging out there of, will the U.S. Supreme Court ever step in and decide this case? So, but for now, all is good with them.
Yep. Mixed.
Pat Baumhack, interesting. Here's a guy who a month ago we thought was dead in the water. At least that was the theory in Madison, because had a contentious primary, went to a recount.
Dem split.
Won the recount barely after ballots were lost and other kinds of things happened. WMC went after him this week with a TV ad, $600,000 plus buy. Now, It's almost a good sign because it means that the race isn't put away.
That's what he said.
So
told us yesterday.
So here's the thing, though. Pat Baumhack needs outside groups to come help him. Because if WMC is on the air unanswered, it's going to sink in, and that will sink his campaign. But talking to Republicans and Democrats, they've told me that their polling shows Howard Marklein, the Republican, is up, but not by a lot, like 45-ish, 41, that kind of neck of the woods. Mary Burke's going to do well in southwestern Wisconsin. That means that Howard Marklein has to have crossover voters to get him across the finish line. That nature of the district will probably keep it close no matter what. But Howard has proven before he can do it. He won his assembly district with Barack Obama blowing out Mitt Romney. So he can do it. Will he do it again? So Pat, not dead in the water, but he's also got some work to do if he wants to win that seat.
What signal, though, did the retiring senator, Dale Schultz, say when he said that Baumhack is a good fit for the 17th Senate district, stopping just short of endorsing him? What's that about?
Dale has stopped short of being the good Republican. Maybe he's always told us, I'm a good Republican, always have been.
Yes.
But the party may have left him in his mind, and he's kind of not a big fan. More than that, he's not a big fan of Howard Marklein. He's made that clear over and over again. He has said Howard ran against him because of his votes on the budget, Act 10, and mining. And he says those things aren't popular in my district. So Howard Marklein's not a good fit. So Dale may be kind of throwing a little elbow on the way out the door toward Howard Marklein. He's not happy with how Howard Marklein came after him. That
is a fascinating race that became more fascinating last week with the WMC buy and the Schultz saying maybe he's not such a Democrat. Falling, sir.
Well, with a nod to Kevin Kennedy, they have a good week with Robin Vos. But
yes.
I mean, Brad Schimel, what we just were talking about. I mean, part of it is asking folks. This is a sign of an inexperienced candidate. If you're in interview like that on a cable access show and give that question, you find a way to sidestep it. Even if you, in your heart, believe that theory, no matter what, there's a better way to answer that question that is more politically, that's better for you politically and not so damaging. So it's just kind of a self-inflicted wound. Now, it's his first big bump in the race. It doesn't mean it's over. Susan Happ's got her own problems. Again, the question becomes, will either be liked come November 4th? Right now, I'd say that they're both going to have higher negatives than positives in the last Marquette poll for the election.
JR, this is an amazing election cycle, isn't it?
They all are.
It really is. I'm Steve Walders.
And I'm J.R. Ross.
And that's Rewind for October 10th. Thanks.